evening and welcome to tonight's ordinary meeting. A very special meeting for us this evening. I'd just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we're meeting tonight. This is the Wadawurrung people. I pay my respects to the elders past and present. Are there any apologies this evening? We have Councillor Contel. Are there any others to be noted? Thank you. It's a very special evening as we welcome and formally welcome our 2019 Youth Council. This has been a process undertaken by Council in recent times to put together a junior council that will meet as a group, discuss a whole range of items, and I guess having had some discussions with them in recent times, I can assure our gallery and our community that the topics that they will be tackling are very much the discussions that we are having today in a whole range of areas. They are very bright, they are very in tune with the community, and they are very keen to be engaged and to be heard, importantly. So and we say a very warm welcome to our Youth Council. They represent a wide cross-section of the community, and there are 3 councillors from each ward. So there's 3 junior councillors from the Brownbill ward in the centre, 3 councillors from the Windermere ward in the north, 3 councillors from the Bellarine area, and 3 councillors from the Cardinia ward in the south. So there's an even spread, or an equal spread of councillors representing each ward. So it was a really interesting process to go through, and the particular personnel who were selecting the junior council didn't know where the particular participants, or those who applied, applicants rather, were from. All they knew was basically reading their submission to be considered for the junior council. So it was a really good process to go through, and the particular selection criteria has stood us in good stead and given us a really good, bright, enthusiastic young group of people from our community. So we say a warm welcome to them to tonight's meeting. And I'd like to formally introduce Josephine, our junior council mayor. And Josephine has been voted by her peers, by the group. We had a process recently where an election took place, and a number of the junior council spoke to the group, and it was really well done, and no doubt quite a difficult choice in the group, because they were all really good and really excited by the prospect of being on the junior council, and it was done really well. Josephine's been elected for this year, and I'd like to hand over to Josephine, our junior mayor, just to say a few words on behalf of the junior council, and so welcome, Josephine, and the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah? Okay, thank you. Albus Dumbledore stated in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince that age is foolish and forgetful when it underestimates youth. And I am so grateful that the Geelong City Council does not, and never has, underestimated the importance of youth in our community. It is such a privilege, alongside my fellow youth council members, to represent all young people in and around Geelong, and we can assure you that we won't let you down. Good evening, Mayor Bruce Harwood, Greater Geelong councillors, youth councillors and guests. My name is Josie Horn, and I was recently voted in as youth mayor. I am 15 years old and am passionate about the ocean, current affairs, travelling and the Harry Potter series. I am proud to reside in Point Lonsdale and have loved growing up in the Geelong region. I'm so thankful to be able to go to the beach and walk through the sleepy streets of Point Lonsdale whilst being only 30 minutes away from central Geelong and all its great facilities, food and culture. As the junior mayor, I will be leading and working alongside the Geelong Youth Council to recommend projects and initiatives that make a positive change for young people and their communities. We aim to engage with as many young people as possible and target areas such as youth, mental health, access and awareness, environmental sustainability, and safety within all neighbourhoods, especially central Geelong. I'm looking forward to reporting to you all at senior council meetings throughout the year on what initiatives we are planning and of any recommendations we have on issues regarding, or of any recommendations we may have regarding issues in Geelong. A major focus of the Youth Council will be to engage with as many young people in the community as possible, from all different socio-economic and cultural backgrounds. Whether it be just a few specific questions, organising open forums for youth-free speech, or just having a genuine conversation. A mission of the Youth Council is to listen to the Geelong's collective voice and act upon it. A key issue the Youth Council would like to explore is mental health in young people. Just last week, The Age published an article on the alarming rates of self-harm by medication overdoses in adolescents, stating there was a dramatic rise in antidepressant drugs being prescribed to minors as well. We cannot let the future generation of our nation suffer from devastating mental health issues, whilst feeling isolated and stigmatised from it. We need to change young people's attitude towards mental health so they can realise that it's not a taboo, that mental health is extremely important to overall being and it is okay to suffer from it. Although this is a difficult task, it doesn't mean we shouldn't start now. On the contrary, we should combat it as soon as possible so all young people are aware of mental health and its prevalence in today's society. Awareness of mental health can happen through initiatives and projects run by young people for young people, so they can discover more about these conditions from peers in a supportive and judgment-free space. In these projects, we would emphasise the need to identify mental health conditions early by telling young people about warning signs so they can look out for themselves, their family and their friends. We need to demonstrate to Geelong's youth how these conditions drastically decrease the quality of life for thousands of people, how it can destroy dreams and restrict passions in a heartbeat. Targeting youth mental health will help young people feel supported if they're going through hard times, ensure they feel safe saying they are having a rough time, and improve the well-being of many people within the community. As your first Youth Council, we strive to be empathetic and active listeners. We all aim to talk and meet as many young people in the community and have genuine conversations about their passions and their dreams. You can always count on us to be kind and considerate when talking to young people in the region, and we will treat all with respect and authenticity. The Youth Council will encourage all young people to have a conversation with us about what they may need the Geelong City Council to provide for them so they can thrive and reach their potential in Geelong. We will never cease to act with kindness and none of us will ever be judgmental or biased whilst listening to anyone's opinions on any matter, even if it differs from our own. As your first Youth Council, we will represent the Geelong region with grace, humility, kindness and respect. These are the values we uphold and projects we suggest will be based upon this and the young community's needs. We are all so excited about working with you to ensure that everyone in the community has a voice and opportunities to thrive. Thank you.
Well done, Josie. So you get a sense, I guess, of where our junior council is coming from. What I'd like to do is now introduce the group that will actually help work with Josie, and I'll start with the Windermere Ward junior councillors. So if you just stand up, please, as I read your name, so we know, the gallery will know who we are. Carmen McLeod. Thank you, Carmen. We have Erin, Erin Robertson. Logan Chandler. From Cardinia Ward, we have Amelia Charlson. Georgia Delaney. Lainey Carlich. From Brownbill, Jesse Papalado. Lulu Josk. And Maddie Pizotsky And from the Ballerine, Jaeger Fawcett. Elkin Wittenberg. And we met Josie Horn from down the Ballerine. So you get a sense of the passion and the excitement that this group has already brought to council. So we look forward to working with the junior council. We look forward to what they're going to bring forward to us as a council group to take on board into our discussions and eventually into our resolution. So thank you all, and we look forward to working with you in the future. All right. As we move along, our confirmation of the minutes. Can I get a move and a second for the ordinary meeting, 29th of January 2019? Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Seconded, Councillor Murray. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Any declarations of conflicts of interest to be noted this evening? Not at this stage. If they do arise, please let us know. Question time, an opportunity for members of the gallery to ask questions. We have a couple sent in prior, which we'll deal with first. What have we done with them? It's back. Our first question is from Mick 8. Is Mick here this evening? Evening, Mick. Come forward, please. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I would like to congratulate Council on this initiative to establish a youth council. It's really, really important that we hear the voice and that we see youth engaged now and are invited to participate in our democracy, our local democracy, as it's them who will be affected by those decisions that we're making here in this room, in State Parliament, and in the Federal Parliament as well. And in particular, in this respect, I'm referring to decisions we make on whether we think we address the problem with our carbon emissions and the disruption it's causing to our climate, whether we think we're addressing it adequately, enough, or not. So a very warm welcome to you, the Youth Council. And my question to both of councils, the Adult Council and the Youth Council, is, are you aware that in a couple of weeks, on the 15th of March, there's going to be yet another of those school strikes, this time a global school strike? And the reason I'm asking that is because this is about, you talk about mental health, you talk about dreams and destroyed dreams. And I can tell you there's one thing that's going to destroy your dreams in the future if you don't watch out, and that's climate change. So here's an opportunity to stand up and either say, we support these kids and we want to spread the words what's happening on the 15th of March, because as it is of now, I don't hear anybody talking about this coming. This is an underground thing, Facebook, email, etc. But I don't see any official councils, leaders, stand up and say, hey, that's important what these kids are saying, and we're supporting them in what they're doing. So I would like to ask Council, what do you say? Are you going to support them? And I'm mindful that when Adam Band asked in the Canberra Parliament at question time to a Prime Minister, and he answered, no, kids should be in school and learn. That was the way to get some promotion for the first climate strike that happened here in Australia. On the 30th of November, 15,000 kids were out in the streets, and they made world news. Suddenly, people realized that these youth are not going to put up with the decisions that are being made in parliaments and in boardrooms. So, my question is, what is your response?
Well, my response
to the climate strike.
Well, we're not going to be stopping anyone from attending a particular meeting, Mick, if that's what you're asking.
Not
Council's
exactly.
Well, no, hang on, let me finish. I appreciate what you've come to say tonight, and no one's arguing against it in any way. Well, all I'm saying is, Council, we don't object to anyone protesting, whatever it might be. So we'll have a very open mind to what that might be. But I just want to say one thing. you sort of alluded to that, it's underground, that council's not doing much about it or not being heard about it. I totally disagree with that. This council has been a leader in environmental issues and policy, and we're one of the first councils to actually have the Future Proofing Geelong program. And you know that we've been very strong in this particular area. So I take back, I'm not overly agreeable to what you've actually said in relation to the Geelong Council and the work that we are doing and constantly doing in relation to environmental issues. No. We do take it serious, and it's not underground. We are very transparent, very open in what we're doing, and we'll continue to do so.
And congratulations on that too. That's great to hear.
Thank you.
It's a balance between whether we do enough. And I mentioned this tonight because I heard that the Youth Council was going to be here. And I think it's actually it's them I'm talking to and it's them I'm addressing in a way. But now the system is that I'm looking this way instead of that way.
But you may be facing them in the years to come.
Yeah, exactly. So really, kids, I'm just in a way encouraging you.
Mick.
Yep.
With respect, it should be coming this way, all right?
All right.
This is who you're addressing.
Yep.
This is the council you have today.
Yes.
They're tomorrow's council.
But can I, as the last thing to say then, just say that silence, I mean, either you're for the school strike
Mick,
or
you've
you're
asked your
against
question
it.
and I've answered it. I've answered the question.
Oh, okay.
And I think I've answered it quite fairly.
But, yeah, silence and not talking
Not being
about
silent,
it is actually the same as not supporting it.
We're not being silent, Mick. Councillor Aiken and Councillor Murray.
Is Peter going to speak, sorry? Or?
No, you go.
Look, Mick, to answer your question, look, thank you for bringing it before us, because I don't think any council objects to the community using question time to be able to put their opinion or view across. You have used this forum to highlight an event that I'm sure most of the youth council members are actually aware of, because the student population in Australia is aware of the national strike and that particular date. And as the Mayor has said, but I think it is important to make it quite clear, Council doesn't object to public spaces being used for the community to be able to express their opinions in a democratic society. And so the steps of City Hall are available for the youth on the 15th of March. And as we would offer to any community group, as long as it's within abiding by the law, we would encourage the Geelong community to be able to express their views and grow and educate and communicate their positions on issues. So if there is a strong representation on the 15th of March, congratulations for using this event to help promote it. But certainly the council would encourage any open space to be available for people to be able to express their views.
Can I just say that I've learned already since I wrote my question that the youth is going to be in front of Richard Marles' office because they see it as a federal issue.
Thank you. I'm going to Councillor Murray to make a quick comment.
Yeah, how are you, Mick? Just on that protest on the 30th of November last year, as Deputy Mayor, I stood with the children of South Geelong Primary School in support of the cause at the school that afternoon. So we are out there and I wasn't aware of the 15th of March, but I look forward to that date.
Excellent. Good to hear.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mick. Richard Straits, on behalf of the Barwon Heads Lifestyle Group. Is Richard here? Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, council officers. My name is Richard Stratis. I'm here tonight representing Barwon Heads Lifestyle Group. I have three questions. First question, if I could, through you, Mr Mayor, regarding council officer report at paragraph 21. I can, yep, sure. What process will council initiate to investigate, explore an expansion of the Barwon Heads town boundary as proposed by the Barwon Heads Lifestyle Group?
Do you want to ask all three, or do you want to do them one at a time?
We can do one at a time.
Okay. I'm going to go to Gareth Smith, our Director of Planning, to answer any questions at this point in time.
Of course.
We'll see where that takes us.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks, Gareth.
Through the Mayor, thanks for the question, Richard, and good to see you here again this week.
Thank you.
The adopted 2017 Bowen Head Structure Plan included an assessment of the location of the town boundary and the farming zone land directly outside the boundary. The position of the structure plan and the independent panel in considering submissions to Amendment C 375 is to retain the existing location of the boundary. The structure plan does not call for or indicate any process to investigate, explore and expansion of the boundary. The structure plan at page 37 recommends that a full review of the structure plan would only occur if there is significant change to state or local policy. The amendment, which will implement the key land use directions of the structure plan, does not insert, replace or amend any greater Geelong Planning Scheme provisions to investigate or explore an expansion of the boundary. On this basis, Council would not be initiating any process to investigate, explore an expansion of the Barwon Heads boundary.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Smith. The second question. Regarding Council Officer Report at paragraph 22, the Council is relying upon recent policy initiatives such as the State Government's Distinctive Areas and Landscapes Bill and the Council's settlement strategy. What is the Council's response to our position that these remain untested bills, strategy, and it is inappropriate to rely upon an untested strategy and/or bill to support the view that strategic planning policies have become more conclusive in relation to township settlement boundaries, and as noted by the panel on page 18 of the panel's report that, quote, no policy refers to the existing Barwon Heads settlement boundary as a permanent boundary.
Through the Mayor, the Council is not relying on these other policy initiatives. It is a statement of fact that the policy trend is towards firming up existing town settlement boundaries. The settlement strategy is an adopted policy which will require planning scheme amendment to implement the key directions into the scheme. The Distinctive Area Bill now forms Part 3AA of the Planning Environment Act. There are certainly no recent policy initiatives that give direct or indirect support to expanding coastal town boundaries.
And the third question through you, Mr Mayor. Regarding the City of Greater Geelong settlement boundary, has the use of the term permanent settlement boundary been revised to settlement boundary?
Through the Mayor, the amendment is unrelated to the settlement strategy and does not propose to make any changes to the settlement strategy that were endorsed late last year.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's my three questions.
Obviously, there'll be further discussion during the first item on tonight's agenda.
Of course.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Ta. Question from Chris Jones. Is Chris with us this evening? We'll take that on notice. And I'd like to open up the gallery to any members who'd like to come forward and ask a question. Good evening, Sandy.
Good evening. Good evening, councillors. My name is Sandy Gatehouse. I'm the president of the Bowen Heads Association. And on behalf of Bowen Heads, I'd like to congratulate the Youth Council and invite the Bellarine Youth Councillors to Bowen Heads, and we will buy them a cup of coffee and a muffin at Starfish and introduce them to other young people in Bowen Heads. We'd like to thank the Council for the lengthy process and for the energy and time that councillors and staff have committed to Amendment C375. We've achieved some of our objectives, but we still have concerns, and you're aware of these concerns, about height and overdevelopment and the impact of overdevelopment on our coastal village. We strongly support the protection of the town boundary, the need for, and noting some of the concerns, that the need for an environmental significance overlay schedule for Warrambine Court, the change from general residential zone to neighbourhood residential zone for the northern part of Bowen Heads, and the change from residential growth zone for the area south of Bridge Road and a strip on the western side of Golf Links Road. We thank the Council for their support in including a traffic and parking study as further work, and understand that this is likely to be included in the forthcoming Council budget. We continue to express our concern about the size of the increased housing diversity area, which is classified as a residential growth area Schedule 3. We are confused at the preference for smaller 1 and 2 bedroom housing types when all we see from these types of developments is overcrowded holiday lets with inadequate parking and very few permanent residents. Where within the IHDA and DDO 42 does the amendment describe the safeguards to protect the coastal identity and unique attributes of Barwon Heads? When is the requirement to advertise single dwellings in RGZ3? And when does the DDO 42 apply?
Gareth, thank you.
I'm glad you're looking at that way.
I do apologise for not sending the question in advance.
Let's see how we go.
Through the Mayor, what I might do is actually the officers are involved that were involved throughout the whole process, and we'll have a much greater understanding, I think, of some of those technical aspects. And we'll give Peter or Joanne, if that's okay, through the Mayor, an opportunity if they wish to respond.
You might need to come forward, Joanne. I think we're going to hear you up there.
Sandy's got them written there that we could borrow, I think, Joe, because there were 3 there.
I'm sure you'll appreciate, if we do take some on notice, I'm sure you'll appreciate that, but we'll see.
I would just like...
Let's see what we can...
I'd like it minuted.
Yes.
Our thanks, and I would like the answers minuted in the meeting minutes.
That will certainly be done, but let's see if we can at least get some information to you this evening. Let's see how we go.
With regard to the advertising of single dwellings, there is no requirement to advertise single dwellings on lots above 300 square metres. So that's not part of a trigger within the planning process. So they won't be advertised.
Right. Where within the IHDA, DDO 42 does the amendment describe safeguards to protect the coastal identity and attributes of Barwon? I suppose the DDO has an objective, so that sort of sits on top of when there's a consideration of the permit. There's requirements to be met within that DDO. There's also a table that triggers a permit, so that table is in effect a default to what the neighbourhood character, what the preferred character of Barwon Heads is. So then if a permit is triggered, then there's a list of requirements that are required to be met, and there's numerous decision guidelines that an officer would have to consider in assessment. I'm not sure how else to answer the question.
I think our concern is that the as-of-right development means that there won't be many opportunities for you to consider and apply. So I think we've expressed our concern.
I think what might be best under the circumstances is to get a proper detailed response recorded and sent out so they can have that to also peruse and make further comment if required. Might be the best process at the moment.
And we strongly encourage the Council to approve Amendment 7375 this evening.
That is noted.
Thank you in
Thank you.
anticipation.
Any other questions from the gallery this evening? Yep, please come forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, council officers. My name's Jacqueline Edge. I'm here representing the residents of Elizabeth Street and surrounding areas. And over the last 3 years, myself and a colleague, Catherine Rees, have been conducting some research within our community to determine the level of priority, safety and amenity is along Elizabeth Street. We've got 73 respondents to date, which I present to you as a petition. And what we're looking for is a coordinated approach from Council to address the safety and amenity of Elizabeth Street and surrounds. Over the last 6 months, we've had numerous contact with the engineering department and the planning department. We've they've been very supportive and have promised, or we've discussed, reprioritisation so that this could be addressed sooner than a 7-year time frame, which was originally coveted. So my question to you, Mr. Mayor, is: I'd like to confirm that Council acknowledges the correspondence between the Elizabeth Street Safety and Amenity Group and Council, and that doesn't have to be answered straight away, but I would like it just to be noted. And that Council agrees that there could be safety and amenity improvements, and that Council also reprioritises this so that it is addressed sooner than 7 years. It is addressed as an urgent matter, and that the amenity not only looks at the aesthetics of the area, but particularly trees and canopy cover.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I'm assuming it's Geelong West.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Thank you. There's a lot of Elizabeth Streets around, but we're with you now. So, okay. Look, thank you. We'll take that on notice this evening. But your points well made. We do acknowledge your presence here this evening and the issues that you have raised, and we'll take that on board into our decision making or discussions and decision making. So, Councillor Murray.
I'm just aware, Jacqueline, that I think you sent an email through yesterday.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, just for memory, I know that's been forwarded on for a response. It might have gone through the portal to you, Guy, or
Vicky
in the last
Shelton's,
24 hours?
Yes, Vicky's actually responded.
Vicky, okay.
Marvellous, yes.
Right.
All right. We understand the concerns you're referring to, and we'll take that on board. Oh, sorry. Well, yeah. If you have the petition, if you'd like to bring that up, we'll just. Where's Jade? Oh, Jade. Sorry. I didn't see Jade there. All right. That goes on record here as well, so that will form part of the discussion and the decision making down the path.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the gallery to ask a question? Jennifer, yes, please. Tom, we'll get to you in a moment.
Welcome back, Jennifer.
You said that.
Councillor Aitken.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My question relates to the Civic Accommodation Project update, item 2, in attachment 2.7, which says, confirm that the future use of the City Hall should, subject to sufficient government funding being available, include the extension of the Geelong Art Gallery and part of City Hall to be retained for civic meetings and ceremonial functions. This point's a little unclear as to which part of City Hall should be retained for civic meetings and ceremonial functions. Elected councillors are gaining a really good reputation, I say this sincerely and genuinely from feedback, for listening to their constituents and responding. You're getting a very good reputation for this. The mid-month community consultation meetings are valued, and requests from the public, I've heard lately from places, for example Brimley, are being heard and problems are being fixed. I think this is really great, and I think the profile and status of the representatives of the people of the City of Greater Geelong needs to be raised, and with the opportunity for the public to meet their representatives in the Town Hall, in their own office, in private. We get quite a few phone calls from members of the public wanting to meet their councillor about issues in their neighbourhoods, and they're not quite sure how to go about it. It's usually to do with planning issues. So I think an office for each councillor to enable each person to be able to undertake their civic duties in relation to their particular portfolios and to meet their particular constituents is possible in the original Town Hall as the City of Greater Geelong headquarters. The 1950s Town Hall must be retained as the oldest town hall in the state that has been continually in use for local government, predating the Melbourne Town Hall, for ceremonial purposes and for civic purposes, as council headquarters. So my first question is, in future updates of the civic accommodation project, could councillors please consider making it clear in point 7 that the art gallery extension occupies the western annex of the present town hall only, and that the seat of local government in the city of Greater Geelong remains in the 1855 design Joseph Reed magnificent Greek Revival building? And question 2, can part of the civic accommodation project be to consider the accommodation of the elect councillors in the headquarters of local government in the city of Greater Geelong in the Joseph Reed Town Hall?
Thank you for your questions and comments again this evening, Jennifer. We haven't had any final discussion on how the transition of the gallery may look coming through this particular building, but it is certainly our intent to retain the central part of Geelong's local government on Jerringham Street for ceremonial purposes and other council business. How that looks at the moment, we don't know. We haven't had that discussion or that as a group discussion within council, but it is our intent to retain that area for the purpose of local government business. In relation to council laws having particular individual officers, I'm not too sure how that discussion might go. But look, I take on board what you're saying, but there's been no final decision exactly how it might look, other than we are committed to retaining front part of City Hall for, as you say, ceremonial purposes, ordinary meetings like this evening to be held there. So there's further discussion to take place, but we're very conscious of the importance of that particular part of the building.
The front part meaning the Joseph Reed building?
Yes.
Thank you. And civic and ceremonial?
Thank you.
Thank you.
But there's a lot of discussion to go yet, Jennifer. You're aware of that. Thank you. Okay. Tom, where are you, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And fellow councillors, congratulations. What a great effort. It's a real credit to you all to recognise that, you know, the energy, the vitality and the future that these people hold for us all. Congratulations. On behalf of the Bellarine Community Council, I'd just like to offer our support, not only for the junior councillors of the Bellarine, but for all the junior councillors. This is a role that I guess we can't underplay, Mr. Mayor and councillors. It is so important. These young people, and you can see it again and again, Christ the King in Newcombe won a prize, a global prize in Hungary late last year, and some of you here are familiar with that. Fabulous, you know, world prize in Hungary. They're now going off to, where are they going off to? Nepal. Anyway, this is just so important. I can't continue to stress the importance of it all. To these young people particularly, congratulations, the very best. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Good man. Any other questions for the council this evening? If not, I'm going to move into the Section B reports. Petitions. We've already had one presented this evening. Is there any other petitions to be presented? If not, we will move into Section B reports. The first agenda item is Amendment C375, Barwon Heads Structure Plan, consideration of panel report and adoption. Moved, Councillor Mason.
We have an alternative recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is it? We have that up on the screen, do we, Jim? We do.
There it is.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Asher. Thank you, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This amendment is specifically related to Warrenbean Court, and it affects only 24 properties. And the intention of this amendment is to ensure that the wording is tightened so that the impact on residential development in regards to the Moona woodland, that will be improved, and there'll be no confusion. There was something that needed to be tightened up, and we spent some time over the last 2 weeks working on this. So that amendment is really only related to the Warrenbean Court and 24 properties so that the wording creates greater clarity. Other than that, we are putting the amendments C375 as it was originally intended. And so the exhibition of the amendment in February and March 2018 resulted in a total of 942 written submissions. Mr Mayor, there's also been a comprehensive engagement with the wider community and representative groups, and it has been a lot of work. Most submissions related to the Barwon Head settlement boundary and the proposed new residential zones and development overlays. The submissions were considered at the 26th of June 2018 Council meeting, where it was then resolved to refer all submissions to an independent panel appointed by the Minister for Planning. The independent panel recommended Amendment C375 be adopted as exhibited, subject to some minor drafting changes to the planning controls. The panel supported the amendment's retention of the existing settlement boundary location. Whilst the panel's recommendations are supported, this report at attachment 6 provides justification where officers prefer some alternative wording to the proposed planning scheme's controls. The amendment includes planning controls to conserve and manage environmental features in Barwon Heads. The Barwon Head Structure Plan and Amendment C375 explanatory report include extensive discussion about the key environmental influences affecting the area. Mr Mayor, I commend council officers for the comprehensive attention that they've given to this project. The panel has supported the fundamental intentions of the amendment, and while a few fine-tuning drafting adjustments have been made by officers, we do support them. In particular, basically all heights will remain the same apart from the following. Area 4, which is located around the shopping centre, in this area, heights will go from 10.5 metres to a maximum of 11 metres. Area 5, currently 10.5 metre maximum, has been reduced to 9 metres maximum. This assists in preserving the historical coastal character of the old town between Bridge Road and the Bluff. Also, extra measures to clarify wording with the intent to ensure the protection of the Moona woodland at Warrenbean Court, as I've already described, and recent policy initiatives such as the state government's Distinctive Areas and Landscapes Bill and the council's settlement strategy tell us that the policy has become firmer in relation to township settlement boundaries. In that light, there may be a case to extend the boundary in the future, but not at this stage, under the auspices of this amendment, and other processes in the future would have to be taken to alter the western boundary.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Asher.
I'll reserve the right, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other councillors to make comment or question at this point? Councillor Sullivan, thank you.
Thank you. I won't cover what Councillor Mason has said, but he makes all valid points. The environmental overlays are necessary and I believe will be very effective. In regards to the town boundary, I believe we're looking at two separate issues here. To the south of Barwon Heads Road, I believe that a recognisable amount of residents certainly wish to see the town boundary remain. And this is an absolutely understandable argument, quite reasonable, to try and preserve what people view as the character and essence of Barwon Heads. And I agree. But on another note, whilst this is understandable, it can in a way perpetuate the close the back gate attitude which can rear its head amongst our coastal towns. And I fear for the long-term residents of Barwon Heads and how limiting the town physically for so long will also certainly limit the amount of physical services with which residents are able to access, services which we will all need at one point in our lifetime. And to the north of Barwon Heads Road, I believe it's a different matter. We have businesses and properties who say that they are being affected by buffer zones and setbacks, which will negatively and unnecessarily affect the operation of these facilities and properties. I've heard all the arguments and cases put forth by the community. All of them have been very well presented, all of them carrying weight and merit. However, overall, I believe that when it comes to walking the line, what we have now appears to be the best outcome, supported by most. We should have faith that the concerns are addressed and covered, and that Barwon Heads will continue to remain the jewel of the Bellarine.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Murnane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I have intend to vote in favour of the amendment and congratulate everybody on the report. I thought it was an excellent report. Reading the report, though, and I'll just make a comment regarding the existing boundaries, that leaves open possibility for further development in the future. And I must say that I like this approach. If you think back 20 years ago, we were debating heights in the CBD of Geelong. Today, we're encouraging residential development to assist with revitalisation of Geelong CBD and the creation of a CBD community. How things can change in a very short space of time. My point being that I think it's very appropriate that we listen to the voices of the day, but the voices of the future will also wish to be heard in time. And in the next 10 to 20 years, Bowen Heads, like the Geelong CBD, may also have different needs and require different circumstances, and I think it's worth noting. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murnane. Councillor Aiken, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, the economic model in Australia and Geelong ensures prosperity through continuous expansion of human footprint, and that occurs through population growth and through the urban sprawl. And that's essentially our economic model that we have in Australia. And in Geelong, we have examples of that in the Bellarine Peninsula, Armstrong Creek, Lara, and we're going to be shortly announcing future urban sprawl areas with western northern growth zones. This model is very American in its roots, and an alternative and more challenging economic model, and is one that's harder to implement, is actually the European model, and that is where economic prosperity is actually developed around limiting population growth and also not expanding the human footprint. The decision tonight actually gives us as a council an opportunity to actually trial a European model. What we're actually doing is we are restricting the boundaries of Bowen Heads, and you actually say, so why are we actually treating Bowen Heads differently to the rest of Geelong? Well, there is another reason for that, in that environmental sustainability is actually one of the most significant decisions that we have to make in relation to the Bowen Heads community. And that is because that community actually is bounded by coastal areas, by water, by lake, and by international migratory birds that actually use that area of Bowen Heads. And as a consequence, we're actually supporting an amendment tonight which is contrary to what we normally do as a planning authority. And we are rebutting the American model of economic prosperity associated with continuously growing the human footprint in our municipality. So I'm fascinated to see what does actually happen to Bowen Heads, because I actually think it will improve the livability and the amenity of that particular part of Geelong, and hopefully it actually is seen as a model that we can start to implement in other parts and regions of areas in Geelong as well too, and start considering a European model of addressing the issue of how we are just unsustainable, the continuous expansion of the human footprint in the Geelong region.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken.
Yes.
Councillor Mansfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, a lot of excellent points have already been made. I think this is the Amendment C375 is an excellent example of, I think, council and various planning bodies working together with the community, listening to the community, and putting together a plan really that will hopefully satisfy the vast majority of the people who are living in Bowen Heads and are part of that community. And as we've heard tonight, there's widespread support for it. I think there's also, as Councillor Aitken has pointed out, it's a really good outcome for the environment. It's a very sensitive area environmentally, in particular with relation to the wetlands and the coastal region, the coastline along there, and the input from the community and various environment groups on those issues, I think, has really strengthened this. I'd also like to congratulate Councillors Asher and Mason for working with officers and community members to further strengthen the environmental aspects of this amendment, as Councillor Mason has pointed out with the amended motion that they've put forward tonight. So, good outcome for the environment. In terms of the future, I hope that's an issue that's also considered in any discussions of the settlement boundaries. It's important to remember that development and service needs are important to think about, but that's a really special environment, and once that's damaged or gone, there won't be any getting it back. So I just think that it's great to be open-minded for the future, but I'd like to see the environment considered as a key issue in this region.
Thank you. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just quickly wanted to say thank you to the Bellarine Ward councillors for stepping me through this process. Given it's not sort of our major focus, given I look after the Windermere Ward with Councillor Aiken, but it's been really handy to have you guys as a reference. And thank you for deferring it last week, because I think we still needed to get our heads around and get it right for the community. So I just wanted to call out and say thank you for your guidance on this one, in particular for Barwon Heads.
Thank you. Any other comments to be made? If not, I'll go to Councillor Asher, who reserved her right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This agenda item has been a very long time coming. The people of Barwon Heads are known for being passionate about their township and for their desire to retain the village feel that drew most people to the area in the first place. And this item is proposing an amendment to the structure plan that was adopted by Council in August 2017. And Amendment C375 is to implement the structure plan into the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme. Lots of planning gobbledygook, I know. Welcome, Geelong junior councillors. You're still here. Welcome to the world of planning. There's two of you here. So to add fuel to the fire of planning jargon, we are proposing an alternate recommendation. So that's an amendment to an amendment, essentially, that captures a critical point about protecting the coastal moona trees in a particular area. And if anybody's actually seen these, it's like a little fairy garden. It's quite amazing. And put simply, this report recommends that we adopt the amendment, put it forward to the Minister for Planning, with a couple of small but very important changes. And to those changes, at risk of reiterating, but I think it's worth it, and a lot of people from Barwon Heads have made the trip tonight, so I think I will labour the point. One of the main concerns of the Barwon Heads community, as represented here tonight, is the retention of the township settlement boundary. Now, there are always two sides to any planning story, as Mr Mayor will tell you, or at least two, in fact. And I note that there is some pressure to extend the boundary also, as we've heard tonight. That's one of the reasons we have an independent panel process. Now, one of the consequences of establishing settlement boundaries is an increase in development within those boundaries. And much as some people would like to shut the gate on anyone else coming to live in their area, that's neither ideal nor practical. And so when permanent boundaries are established, we naturally have infill residential development with greater intensity. And it follows that another area of contention in Barwon Heads is the level and the nature of that intense development. And this is managed by a range of planning zones and controls, which include an area of increased housing diversity. Our third area of contention, has been mentioned, is the unique environment in Warrenbean Court, where there are stands of those beautiful coastal moona trees, which have very high environmental significance. Now, the 7 days of panel hearings considered all of these issues and many more, and made recommendations accordingly, which were provided to Council in October last year. And the officer's report that's put forward tonight is both comprehensive and very, very well considered. And I'd like to congratulate Gareth Smith, Joanne Van Slageren, Peter Smith, and particularly Peter Shembry for the incredible amount of work that they've put into this process. In response to the boundary question, the panel's recommendation is supported. However, the officers actually preferred alternative wording to the proposed planning scheme controls, And while it's important to note, as Councillor Mason has, that the government's distinctive areas and landscapes bill is heading in the same direction in terms of protecting the coastal areas on the Bellarine Peninsula, we are only considering this item before us tonight on its own merits. And in that context, the recommendation is that development does not occur outside the defined settlement boundary. The Increased Housing Diversity Area, the IHDA, a bit more planning jargon for you over there, Jager. It's still not the preferred option from some in the community who would prefer it not to apply in Bowen Heads at all, and I'm sure most of the townships on the Bellarine would prefer not to have infill also. But it is a natural consequence of setting permanent or defined settlement boundaries. And in the case of Bowen Heads, the size of the IHDA has actually been reduced and many different planning zones amended in an effort to protect and enhance the neighbourhood character. And finally, that point of the alternate recommendation is to address concerns about protection of the coastal meaners in Warrenbean Court. The original wording was relatively complex and referred to permit requirements dependent on specific distances from the drip line of the trees. Bit of environmental gobbledygook there. And put simply, these trees grow in quite a windswept and twisted fashion, and the standard drip line measures don't necessarily protect the trees effectively from development. So after much investigation and discussion with environmental agencies, including DELP, the officers have proposed a simpler and I think quite elegant solution that in essence requires a planning permit in Warrenbean Court wherever there are not existing buildings. And that's the note on the alternate motion that you can see. So I thank the community for their passion and persistence. I hold Bowen Heads up as the exemplar community in how to actually make a point and in raising evidence-based concerns. I also thank the officers for their diligence and patience, and I believe what we've reached is a very successful middle ground for a very special township under a lot of pressure from development. So that about sums up my views on the recommendation. I hope you're all still awake. And after what's been quite the process, I support the amended motion.
Thank you, Councillor Asher. Councillor Mason to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I thank my fellow Bellarine councillors for what they've said and all other councillors for their words of support. Certainly, I think it's been a difficult process, and I think that we've reached the optimum position. I listened to some of the things that have been said tonight, and I do hope that this amendment and the Bowen Head Structure Plan becomes a model that we can work on for the future. And certainly, I hope a signal goes out from us tonight that the environment is an increasingly important element of this. Councillor Aitken mentioned the migratory birds that use the vicinity of Bowen Heads as their habitat. In fact, we have a number of Ramsar sites, an international agreement signed in Iran, in fact, that there's a number of sites around Geelong which have similar qualities. And we need to be extremely careful about these sites in terms of our development. As Councillor Asher said a moment ago, if you confine a boundary, as Councillor Aitken mentioned, follow the European model. Once you contain a boundary, you have to have increased density within inside that boundary. Now, we hope that we can do that in a very sensitive way, and probably as time goes on, people will change their minds in the generations what they see as the character of our various townships. So, all in all, without going on and on about it, I think we've reached the optimum position. It's not only the environment that's important, but the social equity principles that we've been fully engaged in with the local community, and the comprehensive assessment of demographics and housing supply, demand, affordability. All of these things have been looked into, and I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I put the recommendation of the amendment with an amendment to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Item 2 is the Civic Accommodation Project Update. Moved Councillor Manane, thank you, and seconded Councillor Murray, thank you. We might just take a minute while our Bowen Heads folk return down to their beautiful little village.
That's still beautiful.
I like to village. Bowen Heads is Bowen Heads village.
Hey, we got the hood of
what it is.
Ocean Grove comes in.
No, Yeah. Still awake, mate? Going well.
Mr. Anderson.
All right, we'll continue with the meeting. Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This recommendation provides a progress report on the city's progress to procure its new civic accommodation building within the new civic precinct at 137 Mercer Street, Geelong. The report recognises firstly the completion of stage 2 and then the commencement of stage 3. In stage 2 we have received 11 submissions from investors and developers. All submissions have been evaluated by an expert design panel, an expert finance review panel and a council officer working with the committee. It would be accurate to report that Stage 2 has produced some outstanding design concepts from a very strong group of very strong development teams. A confidential tender evaluation report has been provided to Council. This report recommends a short list of developers that we'd like to see to proceed to Stage 3. A detailed report has been produced highlighting the requirements of Stage 3 and the critical timelines for this procurement program that this short list of developments will need to meet. To generate some more public awareness and input, Council intends to undertake a public engagement process over the next few months to explore opportunities that this new precinct may provide for the general public, with an emphasis on things such as what public spaces and facilities could be created, how this Mercer Street location might assist providing links with the railway station, CBD precinct itself, Johnson's Park, the arts and culture and other important assets that we have in our city. Mr Mayor, it's worth reflecting at this point that this project is about more than just a building. It's about actually creating a new civic precinct. Stage 3 of the project will enable those shortlisted developers to undertake further works before a final decision will be made on Council's preferred supplier. These further works will include the developers having an opportunity to finalise their final concept designs and finalising their financial offer and the value for money proposition for the city's ratepayers. Obviously, they'll complete their development agreement and put their best foot forward. Mr Mayor, when our forefathers created the existing civic offices back in the 1980s, as we've heard this evening, they created an iconic building, a building that today is still loved and in high regard by the people of Geelong. It is incumbent upon the current councillors to insist on such a building for today. Yes, this building must be environmentally sustainable. Yes, it must represent best practice working conditions for council staff. It must be financially responsible in terms of value for money for ratepayers, and clearly will need to enhance council's own new digital transformations program. But notwithstanding all these very important requirements, our brief to the shortlisted developments has been that our city wants an iconic building in line with the Geelong City of Design Unesco designation. In the decades ahead, there will be many new buildings created in our city, and our new civic accommodation officers has an opportunity to set the bar. There are a couple of other interesting matters in the report worth mentioning. Firstly, there's a concept about attracting local investment. The very nature of this precinct development lends itself to an opportunity to attract local investment, and the City may take up this initiative to challenge the private sector to explore ways in which this may occur. And the second point I think is worth mentioning, that during the course of Stage 3, there will be an opportunity, we will be exploring an opportunity to partner with the state government in creation of a potential government hub within this new civic precinct, if indeed that is possible, but clearly not solely in our decision. But in all, Mr. Mayor, it's an exciting time. Stage 3 gets us to a really important part of the process, getting close to selecting that final supplier who will give us our first glimpse of what our new building might look like. And it's my pleasure to endorse the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Manane. Well spoken, and really there's the emphasis on the process is what we're going through, and at the end of the Stage 2, we're moving into Stage 3. And as Councillor Manane has highlighted, later on tonight, the tenders will be shortlisted, and then they'll be encouraged to be creative and innovative in how they approach design and funding arrangements for this building. And I think it's been said in this chamber many times since we came together as a council, this is probably one of the most important decisions we'll be making as a council. The new civic accommodation project, which has been with us for some time now, and I think we're progressing very well. And as Councillor Manane has also said, that City officers will be asking for feedback about what will be valued in the new precinct, including connections with the broader CBD, the Green Spine, the train station, and of course potential public spaces, which has been spoken about more recently in recent times. And also, as Councillor Manane has mentioned, also that the encouragement of a government hub within the precinct it raises ideas of what possibly that could be, but nothing should be ruled out. So, as I said, this is an exciting project. The process we're going through, and let's get on with it.
Thank you. Councillor Grisbeck, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Stage 3 is really important in terms of one of the things that the committee and the representatives and city officers will really want to make sure is that the developer is fully appreciative of what the city is trying to achieve. I think the CEO is fully aware of it's about how the operations of the business will work together, how council and council officers and staff will be brought together as a collective, instead of being spread across, I think it's 9 at the moment, 9 different sites. But it's about how they will work in the operation of the daily running of the council. That's really important to me. I think the way that the staff can collaborate in that new building will be really important about the transition that you take them on that journey for the change that they're about to head to. So if we can get the design right, if we can get the finances right, I think then it's over to the CEO to lead a team that will be able to make this not only will it be a presence in Geelong, but it will also be a place that people will want to come and work because of the culture that we're going to build along with this building. So that's our long-term game. But at the moment we are only at Stage 3 and it is a long process. But I think the process that we're going through is rigorous, and I'll support the motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Nelson, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge one of the lead council officers that's driving this project, Mr. Anderson. He's in the gallery tonight, so I thank him for bringing us along this journey. It's certainly one that I'm very proud of as a councillor that we as a group get to do. The last council that I was involved with, we built the Regional Library and Heritage Centre, and that was when that came across our desk. That was certainly a wow moment for me. But it was the second wow moment for me as a councillor. The first one was when I came through the doors out the front there. What a magnificent building this is. Not so much this part, but certainly out the front there. And this is our chance. This is our chance to really build another wow building in Geelong. That will be our legacy as councillors. I can't understate that enough. Might not be for us. We might not be there. The young councillors, they might be there. So I certainly wish them well. But this will be our legacy project. Without doubt, it'll be a 7-star building, but I just want it to be a wow building. I really do. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Aiken, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I support the recommendation before us, but I've publicly stated it before as well too. I do have concerns about the fact that we're only creating 120 car parks with the proposal. The fleet that the council has alone has the capacity to take up nearly every single one of those car parks. So by centralising to that site location, moving all our council fleet to the administrative offices, we actually aren't addressing the issue about accessibility of the people I represent in the northern suburbs and also the people in the Ballerine, in that most of those can only travel into the centre of the city by car, and as a consequence they actually won't be able to access the administrative headquarters because there won't be ability for them to actually park their vehicle or access the premises. So we do have a responsibility going forward into future stages to see how we're going to address this issue about accessibility for not just for the community. We've also got the issue about our 700 staff, and there is genuine concern amongst our staff that the restrictive nature of car parking is a concern to them, and they're starting to express that to us now, and I hope other councillors are getting that feedback from staff as well too. The other point I wish to make is the issue about that's been touched on by the question that was presented to us tonight. Look, this is an administrative offices. It is actually quite clear that council has said that our headquarters is actually Town Hall and City Hall, and there are some strong reasons why we've actually said that this is just administrative offices, and we're keeping our historic and heritage associated with Town Hall. The statement of significance in the Victorian Heritage Register says this about the Geelong Town Hall. Geelong Town Hall, as completed in 1917 in accordance with the original designs of 1854 by Joseph Reed, now this is the important part, is without question one of the finest classical Greek revival town halls in Australia, and a most important early work of this famous and accomplished Victorian architect. The town hall is also one of the oldest in Victoria, having served continuously as the centre of local government in Geelong since 1856. What I've certainly learnt about heritage is that heritage isn't just about a building. Heritage is also about the purpose of a building as well too. And we actually have I actually see the major project that comes out of the building the administrative offices is actually the restoration of Geelong Town Hall and the expansion of the Geelong Art Gallery. But importantly, we actually are committing to keep the heritage value that the headquarters of the City of Greater Geelong is in the Geelong Town Hall that was started and designed in 1854, was opened in 1856, was completed in its construction in 1917. And I certainly personally at some stage believe maybe we do need to have a notice of motion that comes to the council chamber so that we do define the footprint that the art gallery can have an opportunity to explore, and we do also define what is the historical restoration components of the town hall that we wish to commit future funds to. We do have a mayoral chamber that exists in the old part of the town hall, which has been bastardised into an office complex. We do have a council chamber also that has been bastardised into an office complex. What we do have is a unique opportunity to be able to explore the restoration of those precincts and actually cement the heritage value of a purpose and a building with the town hall of the future. Now, I wish to just make a few comments about funding that's available for the art gallery and also for the council. Our federal government hasn't provided any support to the art gallery's expansion at this point of stage. It wasn't included in the city deal discussions, and it certainly hasn't been included in any discussions that I'm aware of recently. Just this week, in meeting with our local members, I raised the prospect of seeing if there was some funding opportunity to either restore Town Hall or to expand the art gallery. And our local members have actually said there is limited to or no opportunity during the term of life of this particular state government because it was not a commitment made during the election process. So I think what is important that we can actually start saying to the art gallery to give some clear direction to that as an organisation and also to the council administration that we can define what is the footprint we wish to have. We also can work within the timeframes that are now being put before us where the state government representatives at the local level are saying there will not be funds available during the next 4 years, but there may be funds available in future government opportunities as well too. So I think we're starting to firm with some timelines, and we're also starting to firm with some footprints as to what is available. So I hope the Geelong Advertiser's streaming or watching in the audience. This is not our headquarters that we are investing in. This is an administrative offices at which to try to deliver community services as best we can in our responsibility as a local government. And what is a project of significance is the ability to restore Geelong Town Hall and to also expand the Geelong Art Gallery to be of national significance, which it deserves.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Mason, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given that the motion is focused on the civic accommodation, I think that we really do, and the conversation that's just happened, we do have quite a grave responsibility, because not only have we got the heritage of the 1850s and the thoughtful and inspiring design of our original building to think about, but we have the legacy of the future to think about, and we are calling ourselves a creative and clever city. We try and make we also a UNESCO city of design. All of these elements mean is a huge burden on us, a huge responsibility to do a really superior job in designing this civic accommodation. Now, as far as I can see, the conversation's been about the art gallery, this building and the civic accommodation, but we have a broader precinct as well. And we've heard about the transport also tonight. So I like to think of the big picture as well, and this is an extremely important part of our design and what might be the heritage that our junior councillors might have inherited, something that's been really thoughtful, well thought out, and will stand the test of time, will be thought of in 100 years' time as yet another iconic development in this area. So I'm concerned, one of my concerns is to continue to think not only of the design of the building itself, but the effect of that building on the environment and the immediate precinct and our whole, if we want to say it like this, our whole cultural and civic precinct. And there needs to be very careful thought about how each building interacts with the other and Johnston's Park and the immediate surroundings.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments? If not, before I go back to Councillor Mason to close, I'll just make a couple of comments in relation to some issues raised. And it is such an important project that we have undertaken thus far. It has a huge impact on the council itself and also the personnel involved in potentially moving into one building. It was one of the Commissioner Inquiry's recommendations that we do consolidate our premises around the CBD, of which there are about 9, into the one building, so we have that proper efficiencies and productivity of the organisation. So that's a very important point. I think also in relation to the state government potentially supporting the gallery, comments made about there's no allocation of funding. Well, state governments can change their minds very quickly when it comes to budgets and public pressure. So I just make that comment that the money seems to become available when particular pressure goes on different governments. In relation to access to the building, one of the premises of buying this particular piece of land about 10 years ago was its proximity to public transport, to the railway station, to the existing home of local government. So access will be one of the key priorities for our community, to have that key access to the building. So that will all be taken into consideration. And in relation to car parking, great cities of the world are reducing their car parking and car reliance in their CBDs. So I think Geelong is slowly moving into that space. There's a lot of discussion that's been had. There's a lot more discussion to be had. But I think if we look to the future, the less cars we have coming into the CBD will make for a far more vibrant and, I guess, environmentally friendly space. So I just make those comments. There's a lot of discussion to take place. And in relation to how this may be activated here at the front section of our great building, everybody wants to see that activated with ceremonial events and the genuine business of local government to still occur in that part of the building. So a lot more discussion to take place, and so we'll continue that and look forward to it. Councillor Manane to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Clearly a very emotive and exciting project, given that occupancy is still 3 years away, and we're all fired up, and so clearly we'll have a lot of discussions about the different stages here, but this motion was about stage 2 and stage 3. Now we're hoping to get that recommendation back regarding the preferred supplier, hopefully by the end of June, and then once we get on with the design work and building specs, maybe construction might start about this time next year. Maybe I think April is the guess date at this stage, and then with 2 years construction, we're looking at July 2022. So a lot of the matters that we've talked about tonight will obviously have some time to come to fruition, funding and the like, and hopefully, and one of my wishes is that the transport situation in Geelong is well solved by 2022. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. I'm going to put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Item 3, bins in central Geelong, managing commercial waste recycling and bin storage. Councillor Sullivan moving and Councillor Mansfield seconding. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Lovely. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Bins in central Geelong, whilst they're not glamorous, it does play into the old council adage of rates, roads and rubbish. Now, council's been asked to support the release of a discussion paper which highlights new ways to manage waste, recycling and bin storage in central Geelong's iconic laneways precinct. Look how Melbourne, we're coming for you. Central Geelong's laneways were originally built for back-of-house services, including rubbish collection, stormwater channeling and night cart collections. Today, the same laneways are in high demand as front-of-house areas for new bars, restaurants and apartment buildings, a change that we all enjoy and look forward to seeing more of. But this change, whilst contributing to a more vibrant and activated central Geelong, creates a number of challenges. These include unwanted effects associated with permanent storage of rubbish bins in public areas, including odour, overflowing bins, dumped rubbish, congestion and emissions from waste trucks. As a result, the city has received regular feedback from concerned businesses and residents in the area. The discussion paper is intended to start a conversation with the laneways businesses, residents and other stakeholders to establish a way forward. It will give everybody an opportunity to have input into a recommendation option before Council makes a decision. Various forms of engagement with the community will be available on this issue, including a public survey, an opportunity for submissions and one-on-one discussions of all the businesses in the precinct. The public survey and opportunity for submissions will be available on 6th of March 2019. I'd like to state that, as well as that, this is certainly an issue that the Council wishes to see resolved as well as and as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Mansfield, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Sullivan has provided an excellent summary of what this motion is about. As he has pointed out, we get regular feedback from residents and business owners in central Geelong about management of the bins. It's a bit of a complex situation at the moment where quite a number of bins are for historical reasons stored on public land, and businesses have contractual arrangements with various companies to collect that rubbish, and so it's very difficult to. There's no sort of consistent approach to waste management in central Geelong. Recycling is mentioned in this discussion paper. Perhaps it's a topic we won't open that Pandora's box tonight here, but hopefully we'll see a resolution to our recycling issues in the short term. But what I think was interesting in this discussion paper is it opens the opportunity for council to work with businesses to assist them to improve recycling, but more importantly, reduce the amount of waste they produce in the first place. So I think this is an exciting opportunity, this discussion paper, to really help businesses and work with businesses to reduce waste production and hopefully have a better effect on our local environment.
Thank you, Councillor Mansell. Councillor Aiken.
Look, I hope this trial and work actually is successful, because there are actually problems outside the CBD as well too. High Street in Belmont actually has bin problems in our car parking areas that our off-street car parking areas that we own, and the street itself certainly would benefit from some of the initiatives that have been suggested in this particular report. I'm also aware of Ocean Grove as well too. The Terrace and President area actually has bin problems as well too, with commercial waste and commercial litter. Because essentially what my reading of the report is saying that to make the amenity of the area as high as possible, we do have to have a dedicated and centralised and understood system about where our waste collection is and where it actually is housed. And I hope that some of the lessons that are learnt here can be used outside of the CBD of Geelong, because there's those two areas that I've just mentioned would certainly benefit from it as well too. And I hope that officers can actually expand the program if it is successful in the CBD area.
Thank you.
And I'd say Lara would have the same problems as well too, but I'll let Councillor Kiley talk about that.
Councillor Grisbett.
Thank you. No, I'm not going to talk about Lara right now. In relation, I am supportive of going out for this discussion paper to go out. What I am concerned though is that we're not getting on and moving this as quick as we can. The bins, have been highlighted to me by traders that the bins don't look very nice when you're going to sit down and for a meal down in that lane. The smell is probably something else which can get bad at times. So whilst I'm agreeing that we should go out to the community and to the traders and community and ask them what they want in terms of waste removal, I think we're behind the 8 ball, and I want to see this sooner rather than later. And so whilst I'm supportive to go out, put your submissions in really, really quick so we can get this sorted, so we can start to enjoy the laneway for what it's supposed to be.
Thank you. Are there comments to be made? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but Councillor Aiken has made me say some things. As a chef in a previous life, sitting on milk crates in back lanes in Lonsdale Street in Melbourne, I'm certainly used to seeing these pictures of bins and rubbish everywhere, and laneways being activated, and the problems that creates. You've got a thriving business, and where do you put your rubbish? So, along with Councillor Mansfield, I certainly think we need to work together. Proprietors need to work together to have less waste. Working in restaurants for 20 years, there's a lot of waste, and we need to work with the rest of our community to see where we can use some of the waste that we currently throw in the bin, rather than just throwing it away. We can work with other places to Councillor Monane's heart, to reduce our waste rather than just throwing it all in the bin. So I think the community needs to get on board and engage with this, because I think it's a problem that it's not going to go away quickly, that's for sure.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Sullivan to close. Thank you.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Item 4, continuing the eclectic theme of the evening. We have the protecting the hooded plover through the adoption of the city's Conservation Action Plan. Moved Councillor Mason and seconded Councillor Mansfield. Thank you, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So once again, an element of the environment is on the agenda. And at the council meeting on the 9th of October, I was pleased with Councillor Mansfield to support a 6-week consultation on the proposed hooded plover action plan. And at the time I commended the comprehensive and inclusive work done by our officers, and this has proved to be that the plan was very well conceived. And the results of the consultation was that the consideration of 13 submissions resulted in action being taken on feedback, and 3 minor changes were made. Of course, there were some of the submission offered congratulations, and everyone was happy with that. Other submissions complain in various ways about dog owners and how they don't always comply with the rules, and our general answer to that has been that we do plan to appoint an officer, ranger, and has been appointed, and these matters will be handled underneath that issue. Other things that were pointed out was improved signage at Bankura Beach, and the idea of using science-based data to inform strategic planning decisions. So all in all of the feedback was accommodated. And so, Mr. Mayor, the hooded plover is an indicator of the state of our environment, and there are many other elements in that food chain and that web of life. And it's very good to see how people have been responding to the threat on the hooded plover. It's really quite encouraging that indeed the community does generally support and understand this project and how well it's seated, and that we do have to find ways for all stakeholders to enjoy beaches and the natural environment generally. And I think that it's proved to be the case that this plan has taken into account all of the needs of the community and has come up with a balanced and helpful recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Mansfield, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mason, for that excellent summary of what this motion is about. So, as Councillor Mason has said, we discussed this action plan at our October meeting, and have put it out for community consultation, have responded to that community consultation, I think, with several changes that strengthen the plan, including improved communication to, in particular, dog owners about their responsibilities at particular times of the year to ensure greater protection of the hooded plovers, which are really an iconic bird in our region and unfortunately an endangered species, and endangered because, or largely because of the actions and consequences of the spread of human beings along the coast. I think this is a really excellent example of, again, multiple different community organisations, community members and council working together to get a really comprehensive and well-supported result. This action plan has had input from a whole range of different dedicated community groups who've been able to incorporate the evidence but also local knowledge and and resources to create a practical but evidence-based management plan. And I congratulate all those who were involved in the consultation process in the development of this. Another thing to note from the feedback received is that there is consideration being made of developing or possibly developing permanent protected zones for these birds. So that's been left open as an option for the future, and more evidence will be gathered about that as a possibility. So again, I'd just like to say congratulate everyone on this. It's a fantastic example of community working together for an excellent outcome for the environment.
Thank you. Councillor Mansfield, any other comments? Councillor Grisbeck?
Just quickly, Mr Mayor, thanks to this work, it helped me decipher the difference between a hooded plover and a normal plover that lives on a roundabout and swoops your head every 5 minutes. So these animals are, as Councillor Mansfield has said, looking at really low numbers, and so we need to protect them. And so I'm really glad that the city's taken this stance to protect these animals. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Asher, thank you.
I'm going to be controversial here, Mr Mayor, because I actually don't believe the online research reflects general sentiment at all. It's a very different conversation on the beach, and I spend quite a lot of time on that beach. And for me, it's the nature of this type of engagement, the online survey, that will attract a particular type of response. Surveying people at the site on the beach would elicit quite a different data set, I believe. Having said that, though, I do think the actual plan has landed in quite a moderate and sensible place. I'm happy to support it, but I just want to make that point because I hear an awful lot of people making quite different comments on the beach, all wanting to protect the plover, but the way it goes about it and excluding people completely from large sections of beach in the middle of summer is very tricky. So just make that point.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Over millions of years, they have evolved the ability to survive solely on the strip of seaweed-strewn sand that divides the Great Southland from the Southern Ocean. If any single entity defines the surf beach of southeastern Australia, it has to be the hooded plover.
What was the budget number?
John Murray, BirdLife Australian volunteer, Friends of the Hooded Plover, Bellarine Peninsula. No more to say.
The rest, my friends.
What can one say?
To be or not to be, Councillor Murray.
Right, if there's no further contribution to the topic, I'm going to go to Councillor Mason to close.
Mr Mayor, I was so tempted to give a little diatribe about the roundabouts. I'm glad the first one was so successful. And
we've covered roundabouts and plovers on roundabouts.
So as we come out of the roundabout, I'd just like to say one other thing, and that is indeed we are fulfilling our international obligations as well, in that we do have obligations in relation to threatened species and vulnerable species, and the hooded plover is one of those. And these obligations, international obligations that we do have, are now being translated into local policies and plans, including the COG Council plan and its One Planet strategy. So I think it's a very healthy development, and I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour, those against, that is carried. Thank you. Item 5, 2019 Unesco Creative Cities Network Annual General Meeting. Moved Councillor Sullivan, seconded Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council has been asked to authorise Mayor's attendance at the Unesco Creative Cities Network 13th Annual General Meeting in Fabriano, Italy, from the 10th to 15th of June 2019. The Mayor's attendance at the AGM is an obligation as part of Geelong's UNESCO City of Design designation. If adopted, Mayor Harwood will make the trip with a city staff member where they'll promote our region to an international audience of more than 180 other UNESCO creative cities. Attendance also offers a valuable opportunity to share ideas and strengthen existing relationships with other cities of design. Several of these share a similar background to Geelong, as cities transitioning from a traditional manufacturing to a more diverse economy. Geelong will feature in the Design Cities exhibition during the AGM and will take part in a showcase demonstrating how design is shaping the cities in the network. Geelong is Australia's only UNESCO City of Design and is the only regional Australian city to hold a UNESCO Creative City designation. Make no mistake, this is a prestigious title. The only other Australian members of the Creative Cities Network are Melbourne, a city of literature, Sydney, a city of film, and Adelaide, which is a city of music. The title has already delivered major benefits, including a partnership with the National Gallery of Victoria to expand this year's Melbourne Design Week to Geelong. We're already stealing Design Week. In a first, Geelong will host 23 events from the 14th to 24th of March, showcasing the design and creative ability of local people and organisations. Geelong is even soon to host a UNESCO stakeholder event, which will include international representatives. The representatives will share how they've used UNESCO City of Design designation to support change in their cities, continuing Geelong's commitment to collaborating with other cities in the network. We are not a small town anymore. Geelong operates and is recognised on a global scale, and this is a part of that process.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Sullivan. It seems only yesterday that we were talking about last year's trip, and it's come around, and now we're at the Chamber again talking about this year's. And we really should go back to the decision we made last year. We made a decision as council to support this, and things haven't changed. In fact, they really should have strengthened the group. My submission should be strengthened because we're seeing the benefits, and as Councillor Sullivan has alluded to, the National Gallery of Victoria to expand this year's Melbourne Design Week to Geelong, and Geelong will be hosting 23 events from the 14th to the 24th of March, showcasing the design and creative ability of local people and organisations. So that's just one benefit that Geelong sees as being a UNESCO City of Design. So I support the Mayor travelling to Fabriano, Italy. Is that north or is that south?
I don't know.
Mayor doesn't know where it is. But anyway, it sounds like a great place, and for the AGM. So I'd like to also highlight and perhaps emphasise that if they're looking for a city to host next year's AGM, and I think it's in the report there somewhere that Geelong might be a possibility, push it so that we can bring all these other City of Designs, the UNESCO cities from around the world to our great city here. So support the motion.
Thank you. Other comments from the councillors? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do support this motion. I think what we need to make it very clear to the community that the cost implication is for the mayor and a council officer. So that is $10,000 for the two people to attend. It's not just one. And I think that we need to make sure that these facts are portrayed into the community. Councillor Murray is right. We have agreed to become a UNESCO City of Design, and part of that is to have that 4-year commitment to represent Geelong on the world stage. So I am supportive of this, and I think that we need to make it very, very clear that it is for two people. It's not the mayor going on a junket. A junket would be a 3-week holiday with a 1-day meeting in Europe. So I know that the trip itself is, I think, 4 or 5 days, Mr Mayor. 2 of those days will be on a plane. I'm sure it's the back of the plane and it's not the front of the plane. Please enjoy that plane food, because I know where I would be in terms of where I would rather be in terms of what you're eating. But look, I think all jokes aside, we have agreed to support this, and I think this is just an extension of that.
Thank you. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I don't think the people in Windermere will be happy that the Mayor's away on the 11th of June, because on the 11th of June we're actually holding a community meeting out in the Windermere ward, and they won't have the opportunity to be able to see the Mayor. So I'm happy to support the Mayor not to be there if he gives Kylie and I the confidence to be anointed as either the acting mayor at that particular meeting, and Kylie and I would love that opportunity at that particular meeting and represent you while you're representing us overseas, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Nelson?
Well, I hope that doesn't happen. The meeting might go for 3 hours. But just on topic, I'm happy to support this so long as the Mayor does fly our local carrier, AirAsia. I've flown them already, and Councillor Contel has flown them recently. He just texted me to say hello during the meeting, so he's obviously watching from Malaysia. So hello to Councillor Contel. So I'm happy to support it as if we use our local carrier and the cities in central Italy near San Marino. So that's where it is.
Thank you. Any other comments before I go back to Councillor Sullivan to close? I'll just make a couple of really quick comments. First of all, thank you for the particular comments made this evening. I think importantly, what Councillor Murray has raised, and one of our goals, even from the very first time we went across to Krakow with Council Officer Tim Ellis, who was outstanding during the conference there. Our goal is very much to bring Unesco to Geelong. We're very front of mind with that, and we gave some really good presentations, some good strong evidence why Unesco should look at Geelong as a destination to come down to and hold an event. Very, very few people at the conference had actually, ever been to Australia, let alone down to Geelong. But their interest in Australia is very high. They hear a lot about us. They are very envious of us, of what they hear, of our environment, our livability, and what we have down here. And we are pushing very hard. We had one of our officers go to the City of Design meeting in Dundee recently, again to reaffirm our commitment. And we're very, very fortunate that representatives from Dundee, in particular, Stuart Murdoch and Annie, whose last name escapes me, but they will be coming to Geelong. They will be coming to Geelong in the Melbourne Design Week, coming down specifically to Geelong, and to have the support of Dundee, who are a very strong city in the City of Design network, was a real coup for us. And again, I think it starts to push Geelong into that particular space of potentially holding a Unesco event here in Geelong, which would be an unbelievable achievement for us. And we're trying to do that in a very timely manner. So we're looking to make that happen. And also Turin, our representatives from Turin will also be here in March this year. So we're already making inroads, winning the confidence of other City of Design's cities, and we're looking forward to hosting them down here in March. So it is one of our uppermost goals. So let's make those quick comments. Councillor Murray to close. Thank you.
Ooh.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Councillor Sullivan to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I agree with all the words of my fellow councillors, and I look forward to Deputy Mayor Murray's stewardship during the meeting in Windermere.
We'll see.
Now, first of all, design, as we've heard, is not only the shape of a building, but how we operate as organisations. In this process, this trip not only brings Geelong to the world, but the world to Geelong, which brings benefits to the public, private and education centres. So I'm happy to commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour, those against, thank you. That is carried. Item 6 is a tender process for Tivoli Drive construction and Port Ellington Road signalisation works. I think it's traffic lights, but further simple. Thank you, Councillor Manane, and seconded Councillor Murray. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Manane.
Thank you. I'm very pleased this finance matter's on the agenda. I was getting a bit withdrawal sense with no floodplain matters tonight, so I'm very pleased to have this agenda item. It's a simple one, although important, about council's asked to award a contract C19 for the construction of Tivoli Drive, Curlewis and accompanying Port Ellington Road signalisation works to the successful tenderer, Lake and Land Proprietary Limited. The new 600 metre sketch of road will see Tivoli Drive in Curlewis extended to connect Port Ellington Road with Corrigal Road. Forms part of the wider Jetty Road infrastructure plan and will provide a critical link for local residents to the Jetty Road area and Clifton Springs. The cost of the project is about $3.67 million, will be fully funded by the city and developer contribution plan income, and the works are just about to start. In fact, I think they're put down for the 4th of March, which is next week. There were 3 tenderers, and Lake and Land Proprietary Limited receiving the highest score from an evaluation panel against our usual criteria. So it's gone through the process. So happy to recommend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Councillor Murray.
I reserve my right.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from councillors?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Grisbeck, thank you.
Thank you. One of the good things about this is it's getting done. The second good thing is that it's in a public arena, and credit to the finance team and the procurement team for allowing that to go into public time and not sort of behind confidential. So another step towards further transparency from the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Murray. Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Manane to close. Thank you. Put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour, those against, that is carried. Thank you. Item 7, we have a contractual matter, so I need a move and a second to go into confidential. Move Councillor Manane and seconded Councillor Nelson. Those in favour, those against, that is carried. Thank you. Section C, Assembly of Councils, Councillors. Move and a seconder, please. Move Councillor Sullivan and seconded Councillor Mason. Those in favour, those against, that is carried. Thank you. The planning delegations, need a move and a seconder, please. Move Councillor Mason, seconded Councillor Asher. Those in favour, those against, they are carried. Thank you. Move and seconder, move into the confidential section. Move Councillor Nelson and seconded Councillor Sullivan. Those in favour?
You have difficulty looking to your left, Mr. Mayor.
My apologies, Councillor Aiken. Those in favour of moving to confidential? These carried. Thank you. And on that note, we say good evening to